Hello, Scooper Troopers. Once again, we're with you for another Dipshit Files.
Hello, hello.
I am Mr. Script Keeper.
And I'm Mrs. Script Keeper.
And this is episode 9 of the Dipshit Files. Mm-hmm. And we're going back to alien shit.
Yes.
We have 4 UFO stories for you guys, some pretty interesting ones. We had quite the debate on how to rank them, but they're very interesting, and we're going to have a fun time. We're going to have more of a free-flowing conversation, this Dipshit Files, right?
Yes, we are.
So we're having fun here in SkatCast Studios. We'll see you on the other side. This is Dipshit Files. Load it up.
Dipshit Files.
It's a bibbity. Hi.
Hi.
Let's do 4 UFO things.
Yes.
That's what we're doing today. So hello to all of you guys. I hope you're having a lovely Wednesday. Check out Joe's new show, Can't We Don't? Can't We Doesn't?
Can we don't? Can we don't?
Can We Don't?
Yeah, I think.
Are we not? Is we daren't? I don't know. But check them out today. I'm sure you will be, and I'm sure it's great. Mm-hmm. And it's good to see Brian doing cool shit too. So we've got 4 fucking UFO things. They're all fun. They're all pretty decent on the scale. We rated all of them as we usually do. Mm-hmm. None of them are as high as the Phoenix Lights, unfortunately. But we found one story that we think you guys are going to find fascinating.
Yeah, well, I think
we did. Actually, all 3 of them are fascinating.
Yeah.
But one in particular is just ridiculous.
Right.
And
we actually debated for like 2 hours on this thing.
Yeah. Which is why we're not going to do all the bells and whistles this time, because we had a long-ass production meeting.
We should have done it on microphone, but we didn't.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Oh, well. But we are going to talk about the Jackie Gleason story, the famous actor. He has an incredible story that you're just going to have to take his word for it or not. And then there's the Hudson River Invasion. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to look at the Flashing Meadows Park. Yeah. And the Sutton Family. Yeah. And those are the names of them, but we'll get into all the details there.
Right.
But I think the Sutton Family, we're going to save that for the last. Yes. But what would you do in this situation is what I will be asking you when we get to it. All right, so we're not wasting time today. We're getting right to the stories, you guys. There's 4 of them. So this is the Jackie Gleason story.
Yes. So Jackie Gleason is remembered as one of America's greatest comedy talents. Born in Brooklyn, he became an extremely hardworking and driven actor and director. Unheard of in the days of early television, Gleason often wrote deals that provided him with huge sums of money and allowed him to actually produce many of his shows. Right. So everything Gleason did, he did with a lot of passion, obviously. So even the scripts that were written for the shows he made all the changes. It was just the way he wanted it to be. So it's kind of an interesting
Control
story.
Freak.
Yeah, total.
Yeah. But a very smart guy, very bright guy.
Yeah, well, and on set, no one was ever allowed to step out of character.
Crazy guy, too, but bright.
Camera shots and angles were always set up the way he wanted them. So I bet you he was kind of a challenge to work with. But
I imagine.
He was passionate, and that passion extended into his personal life. So he was fascinated by flying saucers and the unexplained and UFOs and all that stuff. So he ultimately assembled one of the world's greatest parapsychological libraries, like Crazy. In collections and stuff.
Did you guys know that? I had no idea that Jackie Gleason
I didn't either until I started doing the research. And his collection actually lives today at the University of Miami Library.
I'm gonna have to send Dave and Angus there for sure.
It's called the Gleason Collection.
Oh, they're checking that out for sure.
Yeah.
Keep me up on that. I gotta make sure you get there.
So in 1982, Jackie Gleason shared a story with the radio host. Basically on the down low, he was told that he wasn't supposed to talk about this stuff, but the host was a writer and hosted a show that explained about the unexplained and like UFOs and shit. So out of the blue, Gleason told him how Richard Nixon was a good friend of his, and he told this story that when they were golfing, I guess he was constantly, because of what he was into,
tell me about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Give me the info. And he's
so finally, they were so they were playing golf one day, and he basically said, "I want to know." So
I would do that too if I knew a president. I'd be like, "Please, come on! I will not tell anyone. I promise."
Right. So basically, he was really good friends with Richard Nixon. In fact, he supported Nixon in every possible way during his bid for presidency in 1968.
He's like a big donor, right?
Yeah, huge. and supported him in all kinds of different ways. So in 1971, he finally was rewarded this information when he attended a small White House dinner. So, and it was actually in Gleason's honor, like a thank you thing. So after dinner, Gleason spoke with Richard Nixon, and then he asked if there was anything that Nixon could tell him about UFOs. Were they real? Are there actually alien spacecraft? And according to Gleason, Nixon told him, and this is a quote, "Well, Jackie, if you would arrange to arrive at the MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa sometime over the next few days, I'll arrange to have you shown some things that may help answer some of your questions." End quote.
And then he just took him to Mars.
Right. So Gleason went to Tampa a day and a half later. He wasted no time.
Right.
And so after calling the phone number provided to him by someone in Nixon's staff, he basically headed out to MacDill's Air Force Base. So after arriving on base, he was taken to a dark-colored building. He said that appeared to be some sort of a storage facility. Once inside, he had to pass through several levels of security. And then finally, he was escorted to a large room where some, he says, some strange debris had laid on the floor. It was just kind of spread around. And an officer told him this material is from Roswell.
Really?
Yep. No emotion, just like a matter-of-fact statement. Here's this from Roswell.
Okay. No explanation,
zero.
This is the wing. This is the alien.
The officer handed Gleason a small piece. So he actually picked stuff up and gave it to him, which Gleason says seemed almost weightless and very flexible. Just then a light came on in the center of the room, and he was really shocked to see what looked like a piece of a broken disc, but it was floating a few feet above the floor. It was just hanging there.
Jackie Gleason said the spaceship was floating.
Right. So this is really... So he was told not to approach it, and he didn't, but he still saw everything that was going on. But the surprises weren't over yet. So then, after a few minutes of allowing him to gawk at this thing hanging in midair and feel this whatever it was, he was escorted to another room.
Richard Nixon wanted to impress his friend.
This is the big one that was what the fuck? In this room were 3 containers of glass plates. So they were containers with glass in the front so you could view what was inside.
Sure. Think sci-fi little pod thingies.
And so, quote, "These were the occupants found near the objects that you just saw," is what the military guy told him from, on this tour that Nixon set up.
This makes me think, before we go further,
right?
This makes me think Richard Nixon was kind of like a son of a bitch.
Right.
And so... Like
a lead troll kind of...
Yeah. It makes me think he's all right, set it up. Send him down there.
This is a lot. This would be a lot of money spent.
Oh God, it's
as
the
a
government.
Practical joke.
If you had, he's got the government. Who knows?
Right.
He's got a lot. There's a lot of money to just waste. But you're right. It might be a personal thing though. He might have,
It may have been, a joke between two guys. Yeah. But so there was no emotion. Again, the officer gave him no emotion. Just one sentence descriptions, and to Jackie that spoke volumes. It was like nothing. It was like, yep, here's your thing. Go ahead, look, feel, touch, And I guess the beings he said they were 4 to 5 feet tall. 2 of the bodies were really badly damaged, but one was in really good shape. So he said he looked at it, and then the officer said, this one died later. And it had large oval eyes, gray skin, looked like a male, actually. He said it looked like a male. And he asked, he said, are they all males? And I don't know, the military guy, I don't know what type of rank he was, but he says, your guess is as good as ours. That was his statement.
How weird.
I know. He answered Jackie with a slight smile. Basically, he was like, I don't know.
Pretty cool, huh?
So basically, the experience of seeing the objects and bodies affected Gleason in ways that he could never truly explain. He was blown away, and he never spoke about it. And when he did... Let's see, it was 1982, I believe. Yep, 1982.
So towards the end of his life.
Yeah, he passed away just a couple years after that of cancer, and I think he had a lung cancer. So,
see, to me, we talked about this before. We did all the rankings on all these. There's something about not a deathbed necessarily confession, but a confession at the towards the end of life when you know it's over. That does. I don't know about you guys, but for me, it takes my skepticism down a little bit. Right. Where it's like, I mean, I know that there's some things where maybe he's a dick at the end and he's like, fuck it, I'm going to throw all this world into a weird mess as I leave. That's possible.
Well, yeah, it is.
But I like to think people leave in good faith on some level. Yeah. And I like to give people good faith. I hate when people show me I'm a fool for believing in people, but whatever. I like to give them good faith. And when it comes out at the end, when there's nothing to gain, he's not trying to sell a book, he's not trying to get on Larry King or whatever.
He's pretty okay at this point. Yeah. You know, his life is pretty settled.
I mean, and so it's, if what he's saying is true, it's the biggest deal. Right. That's why it's just like, it's easy to poo-poo it and be like, yeah, whatever. But it's an interesting one.
Unless it was a massive prank. You know, and he just decided to pass the troll along.
That's the most likely case. Yeah. A comedian being funny at the end. I mean, it makes sense. But it's actually in bad taste because it's fucking with all of us, decades later. But that's what trolls do. I mean, that's the ultimate troll aspiration. Yeah. Is to be remembered through your trolling for decades. All right. Well, that's the end of the Jackie Gleason story that we have for you today. We did give him a score. He ended up being a 1.8 on our scale of all the way to 5. 5 being like, let's get out there and fucking, I'm pretty sure aliens are here. A 2 would be like, no, probably not. But we did give him, there wasn't any, there's only him as a witness. And that's officially a 0.5.
Right. Well, there was Richard Nixon, and then there were people, evidently, the military, allegedly
they would have to be there,
But essentially, the only one that we can count on is Jackie Gleason himself, so that's a 1.
But we did give him a high credibility score. We gave him a 4.0 because it's Jackie Gleason, and again, at the end of life, nothing to gain.
Plenty to lose, though.
Right. And if it was trolling, it's rad, and he gets a 4 for being a troll.
For being a great troll.
And as always, there's no physical evidence, so we gave it a 0. Yeah. There's no videos or photos of this because it was Roswell, and he wasn't allowed to take a camera.
Well, in 1982, there weren't cell phones. So.
No. And they definitely probably wouldn't have let him bring in his cell phone.
Right.
But then how believable was it? Pretty believable, actually. Yeah. We gave him a 4.0 on that because...
Right.
I mean,
just because of
I don't want to be a dick up to him.
Well, part of it was because it was Jackie Gleason. Right.
It's fun. It's like,
and this was his thing. It's his passion. I mean, he has a whole fucking library in Miami now.
One of the most interesting things to learn from this,
or at least a portion, the Jackie Gleason collection.
We had to ask. It's like, because we want to give him the credibility of witness. It's like, well, he's just a normal guy, and we said this before. Normal people like us, we just get 3s because it's not. We didn't study this. We're not trained to notice. We just probably saw something. We might have been drunk. We don't know. Right. But Jackie Gleason, it's not the fact that he was famous. The access his fame got him access to this stuff. But his obsession with ufology, which isn't a science, it's just a hobby. It's a collection. But we can't poo-poo his knowledge of. What he collected and stuff, and for him to collect something that a library is like, give us all of it, please. I don't know what the circumstances were, but I think that's cool. Yeah. And it gives him a 4 instead of a 3. Right. Because we were like, is he an expert? Yeah. Kind of. I mean, he's not an astrophysicist.
Right. He's done a lot of research and a lot of collecting.
And how much fun would he be?
He's a collector, at least.
Right. So, like I said, this is a loose episode. That was a 1.8 for Jackie Gleason. That doesn't come close to the Phoenix Lights, but that's all right. But now let's go to the Hudson River Invasion. You ready to do some Hudson shit?
I am. So in the 1980s, something unexplained was going on in the skies over the Hudson River Valley in New York State. So there was so many experiences and so many sightings in I think it was like a 6-year span. But this one really intrigued me. So
this is pretty interesting. This is crazy.
This gentleman, his name was Charles Dwyer. He was heading to work or coming home from work on the highway. And it's interesting because most of these strange happenings happened on highways in the dark at night. I guess it's because it was kind of from what I understood, it was more open, and quiet and dark. But anyways, so there was bizarre time-lapse experiences, and nightmares, all kinds of weird shit.
Driving through Oregon is like
that. So this guy, Charles Dwyer, was driving home on one evening, and all of a sudden he's driving along on the highway and his car just stops working while he's driving. Just no more power, just stops working. So he's like, what the fuck?
Alternator, bruh.
For Christ's sake, basically.
Right.
Pulls over and gets out of the car and flips up the hood to take a look at what's going on in the engine, find out what's wrong.
And it's just 16 squirrels.
There's 3 lights up in the sky, though. He can see out of the corner of his eye, and it caught his attention. And he glanced to look at it and saw a massive craft hovering right above him.
Hey there.
Moving nice and slow.
We were trying to let you get out of the way, but your car broke down. We got to go. We got to move the spaceship. We got places to be.
Dude is seriously like, what the fuck is that?
Right.
Starting to question his own sanity. He looked a couple times. He's like, what? Am I seeing what I think I'm seeing? What is that?
Right.
And he basically had resigned himself to not say anything.
We automatically assume all of our neighbors are going to be like, get the fuck out of here, loon bin guy.
He questioned his own sanity, and he's like, I'm not telling anybody. I'm just going to get in the car and I'm just going to go. Because evidently it moved. It wasn't so slow that it took forever, but it wasn't zooming either. So it passed by and his headlights turned back on. As soon as it was out of reach, I guess. I don't know, but his headlights popped on. So he got in, tried his car, it started, everything was fine. He went home.
That happens a lot in these stories with UFOs, or whatever they might be.
It's almost like a weird power grid shutdown. So he headed home, and when he got home, on the news, he turned the TV on the news. 3,000 people saw the same thing.
He's like, I'm not crazy. Fuck
he's
yeah,
like, yay, I'm not crazy. So it's not. So basically, when he saw on the news, 3,000 people in the whole Hudson Valley had seen the same thing.
Yeah. For shared delusion to happen, everybody has to be close to each other and talking to each other and shit. And we'll get into that here at the end of the show. But that's insane. Yes.
So I thought
that's like the Phoenix Lights, where it's like, well, the whole city saw it.
Yeah.
Just tell us what it is. And people are like, what, flares? And it's like, fucking really? Come on.
Right.
Can that be flares?
Well, the thing that I found interesting is he was on the highway, away from everyone, alone in his car, had this experience, lost power in his car, had to pull over. Headlights come back on, he drives home. His experience was completely separate from the other people in that city who had an experience.
Yep. He didn't know until he got home. And he's like, fuck yeah.
Exactly. Who called in, got on the news. So, yeah, it was kind of interesting. His was not a shared delusion in any way because he was alone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That gives it more credibility.
Right.
Yeah. And that's all we have for that one.
That's it. That's the story.
But we did rank it a little bit. It got a 2.6 because of all those people.
Right.
The quantity, and I didn't say at the beginning, the witness quantity is one of the things that we have. And it's a scale from 0 to 5. 5 being, let's get ready to go check shit out, or the highest possible. Witness quantity, that's a fuckload of people.
Right, 3,000 people.
Yeah, you get a 5 on our scale when it's over 50 people. And so there you go. So they get a 5.0 for that. Credibility of the people, guaranteed out of 3,000 people, we've got a lot of people trained to notice things, from police and all sorts of different folks. Probably an astrophysicist, maybe now. That's usually one out of a million,
the people that saw this, they were all of it. They were neighbors, they were shop owners, they were police officers. I mean, it wasn't just...
So I'm a huge piece of shit if I just dismiss it like an asshole.
Right.
Because it's like, no.
That's a lot of people.
Most of those people are smarter than you, assholes, so calm down. And they're not all drunk.
Not all of them.
Hudson Bay is a fun place to be, but it's,
I know nothing about Hudson Bay.
What time was it again?
It was in the evening.
Oh, shit. Okay. They could have all been drunk. I'm kidding. But then physical evidence, like all of these UFO things.
Nothing.
There's nothing. And that's what destroys all of the scores for these. Just like when you have a bunch of A's and then an F and you're like, why did I get a 2.0?
But yeah, keep in mind though, there's so much bunk physical evidence out there that people have faked.
True.
That even if there were real evidence, we're not going to believe it anyway.
We're not.
And it sucks.
That makes life less fun to live, yeah.
Well, and it's not just the fun part. It's we're completely at a loss. If this is a thing and there is evidence, we're not even going to look at it.
Right.
Because it has been so made fun of and trolled, that
Right.
we're going to be like, whatever.
That's like the Christians are like, dude, if Jesus comes back, this is going to be a very
It's
hard
like,
sell.
well, it's like
This is
crying
going to be
wolf.
so hard to tell people that he's back.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, you know,
'Cause
it's
we're like,
like
no.
the hypochondriac, you know, wife or husband or child or whatever. They're like, oh, my stomach hurts. Oh, my stomach. You hear so much of it that when their stomach does finally hurt and they say something, you're like, yeah, whatever.
Choke on it.
Whatever. And then they die of appendicitis.
Damn it. But that's their
Shit.
fault for the wolf thing.
Shit.
They cried the wolf thing too much, and the wolf ate them, / whatever physical ailment. It's not good.
Oh,
It's not good.
that was a terrible analogy.
Those
Moving
dog-
on.
All right, moving on. Well, where are we going from here? We're going. I got to tell you, it's a 2.6 is what we got to.
Yeah.
The credibility, like we said, of all those people, there's got to be some people that were very credible.
Right.
So we're going to be fair. No physical evidence. No videos at the time. That was the 80s, right?
Yeah.
82 or 83 to
Yeah.
89.
Not
or so.
many people have the 87-pound video camera, VHS, whatever, 8-track, I don't know,
I had
pointed at the sky.
8-track video camera. Fucking bro. We're listening to
I don't know.
CCR while we're filming this shit, bro. Why not? I had one of those cameras.
I forgot 8-track is audio, isn't it?
Yeah. I love, but that's 8 millimeters, probably where you go.
There we go,
But
yes.
it might as well be 8-track for the quality of video that you got from a lot of the consumer camcorders back in the day.
filmed on a potato.
Yeah,
A salted
they were.
potato.
Dude, that was
still
my-
a potato.
I filmed so many things. My buddy and I, we hung out the other day. We were talking about how
Oh, yeah.
in school, every project turned into us making a video.
Right.
But it was all on VHS tape on the camera, and you couldn't edit that shit. It was just like, and go. Oh, that's awkward. We can't edit that. And go. And so we'd turn that shit in, and people were like, yeah, that was great. It's like, man, that shit doesn't hold up anymore. If only we had some editing software in the 90s that was affordable and easy to use. So it was a 2.6 overall because we gave it, how believable is the Hudson River Invasion?
Well, I kind of was, I was intrigued by it.
I was too.
I really was.
And there's probably some professors and shit that
Namely
saw that.
because of 3,000 people saw maybe a classified
Exactly.
airship,
It was the
airplane
80s.
from NASA or something. You know what
Right.
I mean?
It was probably an F-22.
Or
They're
military,
probably working on
yeah.
ship
And they can't tell us that stuff.
Exactly. That's the weird thing. Like, even as a kid, I was obsessed with the SR-71 Blackbird. It was the coolest thing, and it's still the fastest thing they've ever made, and it can fly super high in the stratosphere or some shit. And that has to be. When I heard all the specs on that shit, it's like that's got to be UFOs to some folk, because if you're catching a glimpse of that, that's fast. You know?
Okay, so-
there are no planes that go like that.
You
that I've seen.
know when we're driving around and we have a weird sound in the car and like the engine's making a weird noise.
Do you think it's
and
a gremlin?
I turn the volume of the stereo down and I listen and I say, that sounds like the transmission potentially.
Right.
Or we're running real rich.
Right.
That gas is just, when I'm using the terminology from the engine pieces in the car and that sort of thing, all
Sure.
the parts, that blank stare you get?
Yes.
That's what I get when you talk about military planes.
Oh, the SR-71 Blackbird? Oh, shit. Okay. I thought you were going somewhere, and that's a good place to go. The SR-71 Blackbird is just it was a highly... It was so highly classified, but there was...
Does it have a higgity on the higgum?
It has the higgity on the higgum. The reason why I brought it up and why I think I'm still going with it is because it definitely was UFO.
Do you have to push the velocitator to get it to move forward?
And decelematrix to get
And
it
then
to stop.
yeah, got it,
You want to
got
get it
it.
to stop with a decelematrix. Anywho, that jet, and think about like the stealth bomber. Do you know what that is? Have
I
you
do.
Seen,
My dad actually did
V-wing?
parts
Yeah,
for
your
that.
dad made shit.
Yeah.
So that one's not. It's a F-117 and a B-2 bomber. Or wait.
So
I
he's
don't
like,
know.
the stealth bomber? I'm like, yes. He's like, it's not that.
No, it is those. Well, it's not the bomb. I don't know my head from my ass, and people that do know are gonna be like, "Dude, that's fucking what a dumbass."
I don't know.
What a dumbass telling her, and she just doesn't know because she doesn't
Fucking
care.
blind
You
leading
care,
the blind.
you know. But I'm the dumb leading the not nearly dumb.
Okay.
But all of those things were very much secret, and so they had to fall into that category of where.
Oh, yeah.
Those were the things they were testing in Area 51. The SR-50, the Blackbird, in particular.
This isn't Area 51. This is New York.
I know, but they fly fast and they go across the country in like 3 seconds or 3 minutes.
I'm
or
a
some
dumbass.
shit.
Okay.
No, I'm a dumbass. I don't know, but That was the testing. Those were the things that so many people saw when they saw UFOs out of that Area 51 area. And that's what I think.
Okay.
I'm glad we went there and wasted everyone's time with that. So now it's, yeah. So this one's our highest one of the day. It's a 2.6.
Oh, my God.
I'd love to hear more information if you guys live in the Hudson Bay area, if you've got some interesting shit to say about it.
There's so many stories. I want more.
Me too.
I really do.
Yeah, me too.
So this next one, Flushing Meadows Zoo in Queens, also New York.
Okay.
This one, I'm going to read it instead of paraphrasing.
Okay.
So this one I'm going to read a little bit because there's a lot of information here. Not all of it pertains to UFOs, but it's very fascinating.
This is a crazy one, yeah.
Yeah, so Flushing Meadows Park has a long and unusual history. It is located 10 miles east of Manhattan on Long Island in the borough of Queens in New York between the towns of Flushing and Corona. Now, our New York listeners or that area probably knows what I'm talking about.
Yes.
I have no fucking idea.
Of course not.
But still.
Me either.
The park started out as swampy land situated along Flushing Creek. The area skirted Native American trails that were later developed into Rodman Street, which is called College Point Boulevard today, Roosevelt Avenue, and other paved roadways.
Those sound famous to me.
Well, that's our area. Okay. So because of its location and inability to be used for much else, the swampland became a dumping area for ashes. So in the 1920s, it was known as the Corona Ash Dumps.
Jeez.
F. Scott Fitzgerald, that's a hard word to say, called the place a Valley of Ashes in The Great Gatsby in his 1925 novel about Long Island society.
Nice. So
the once worthless area was about to be transformed into a marvelous showplace thanks to a grand event known as the World's Fair in 1964-1965. Because it was one of the few large blocks of land still available for development in New York, park commissioners and city planners devised a way to clear and fill the land for use as the site of the 1939 and 1940 New York World's Fair.
Nice.
Yes, so most of the ashes and refuse were incorporated into the bases of the new highways that were being built around and through that area. And these later became Grand Central Parkway, Van Wyck Expressway, Interborough Parkway, and Long Island Expressway.
Nice.
So
it's the heart.
Right. So after the 1939-1940 World's Fair ended in 1940, many of the structures from the fair were leveled, and the area became known as Flushing Meadows Corona Park. A few of the buildings that remained included the New York State Pavilion, and it used to be the first home to the United Nations from 1946 until 1951. And then that organization moved to their permanent location in Manhattan.
David Rockefeller's house.
In Manhattan. That building still exists today and has become the Queens Museum of Art. That's kind of interesting.
I'm going to send Dave Negus there too.
After the fair closed, the area was left with a few prominent buildings from the event, including the Unisphere, the Heliport, which became a catering establishment, the observation towers featured in the Men in Black film with Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones.
I know. Oh!
The area also became home to Shea Stadium, which is New York Mets baseball team.
I know fucking baseball too.
Right?
Bah-ha-ha.
The USTA Billie Jean King National Tennis Center, where the U.S. Open is held.
Fucking A.
A zoo, and other facilities used for swimming, aquatic and boating events.
Fucking A.
So during the 1964-65 World's Fair, there were several UFO sightings that made the news.
Okay.
Most were described as lights in the sky and were explained away as aircraft taking off or landing at nearby LaGuardia Airport. However, it should be noted that people in that area are used to seeing all kinds of aircraft and aircraft lights associated with landings and takeoffs from that airport from LaGuardia and JFK.
Mm-hmm.
They know
but they saw something weird.
Well, they know when they see something different.
Yeah,
in the day or the night sky. The sightings of strange lights above the old fairgrounds continued after the World's Fair ended, and in 1966, one of the most startling occurred. Hundreds of motorists driving on the Grand Central Parkway side of Flushing Meadows Park reported seeing a number of luminescent blue-green objects, which looked like glowing airships that came into view and then basically descended into the lake. So it came into view and then dropped underwater.
Shit.
So it was about 7:40 in the evening, and the press reported the following day. This is a quote. A number of observers said that the object appeared to correspond to the descriptions of UFOs reported in Michigan the previous week, which Air Force experts had attributed to swamp gas discharged from lake bottoms in springtime. This explanation did not satisfy everyone in Queens. Some thought that maybe the Martians wanted to visit the World's Fair and didn't know that it was over. End quote. So most recently, a number of reports came in about white and green lights in a triangular formation seen moving back and forth over Flushing Meadows Park during July 2nd through the 5th, 2008. So this has been going on a long time.
Yeah.
Some of the witnesses said the light suddenly appeared and then disappeared, reappeared again between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m. on those dates. So it just kind of came and went. However, strange lights are not the only phenomena associated with UFOs that has occurred at the park.
I don't remember if it's an A wing. I'm thinking Star Wars wings, X-wing, Y-wing. But the stealth bomber is like a single wing kind of triangular thing. And I believe that we got the technology. I don't know if the Nazis ever developed one of these planes, but they had the technology. And we got that when we, like the Project Paperclip, when we got all the rocket scientists, we got a lot of technology. And I believe that's where we got the stealth bomber technology. And that's in the 40s. So they've been messing around with engines on those weird kind of bodies for a long time. Why they would do it over Hudson Bay, where a bunch of people are, or even, Nevada by Vegas or whatever, it seems strange. But
I don't know.
Where else are you going to do it?
Who knows?
But I always think of that.
Well, anywhere they do it, if that is the thing that we're talking about, that people are seeing, if that's the case, wherever they do it, people are going to see it.
Yeah, and it will be a UFO because people will definitely not be able to identify a $1 billion black project for the Navy. But now comes this crazy, interesting part that ties into a zoo.
Yeah, so in 1968, the Flushing Meadows Zoo opened in the park on the grounds of the World's Fair. So although it's small in scale, the zoo had a number of exhibits and plenty of animals, including sea lions, bears, sheep, bison, mountain lions, coyotes, bald eagles, birds, wolves. It was a full-on zoo.
It's a proper fucking zoo. We got it all.
So since its opening, the zoo has been associated with several disturbing UFO events. So I found this really interesting. The first may have occurred in 1977. After several nights of UFO sightings above the park, wolves managed to escape the zoo on November 30th, 1977. Official reports said that the wolves clawed their way through a chain-link fence surrounding their pen and killed several other animals until they were recaptured by Parks Department personnel and police.
Jeez.
Right. So they got out and went on a fucking rampage.
Yeah.
However, a caretaker working there at the time said that while he was making rounds, he found several animals missing, not just the wolves, and others were dead. The dead animals did not look like they'd been killed by predators, though. He also said that none of the animal pens or enclosures had been unlocked, damaged, or tampered with.
Okay, so that's weird.
Right. So,
How did they die if it wasn't?
Right.
Some guy didn't get in.
Who knows? I mean, we can go into...
It was built on the ashes of something.
We could go into
haunted.
the explanations. Somebody snuck in keys. We could do that. But let's wait.
Inside job.
Until afterwards.
I'm sorry.
Once we get the rest of it
Right.
done here. So there have been a number of odd instances where UFO sightings are associated with the sudden appearance or disappearance of animals. Animals found to be missing from the zoos turn up elsewhere without explanation, which is really interesting. Wild animals not active to an area suddenly appear in that area also without explanation.
Dumb.
And this is kind of happening all over, not just here. All this tends to occur during times when UFOs are observed nearby. The caretaker present during the 1977 event first contacted a ufologist in 1989 about another and far more disturbing occurrence at the zoo. He and several others that had worked there met him near the area of the zoo to kind of discuss this with him. It was being rebuilt at the time, and they claimed that the reason for that was something so disturbing that they had trouble grasping the enormity of what actually happened.
Right.
It began with 2 nights of UFO sightings in 1987. Green and white balls of light that formed into all sorts of shapes hovered directly above the zoo and caused the animals to become really greatly agitated.
Yeah.
It was really bothering them. Due to budget cuts and because there were police in the park all night long, caretakers and the zoo employees were no longer present at the zoo during the evening. But they had police and security there.
Okay.
So the last one would leave around 11 o'clock at night and show up again around 6:30 in the morning to open up the zoo for the other employees. So what is that? 6.5 hours?
Yeah, right.
7.5 hours, I think.
Enough time for some fuckery.
Right. So on the morning after the 2 nights of UFO sightings in 1987, the caretaker and several other employees opened the zoo and were horrified. They found... Okay, so this is what... There's a discrepancy here. A couple of stories, most of the stories say it was every animal.
Right.
Some other stories say it's every animal but reptiles
Were
killed.
Shit.
They were dead. So... Not just
in a zoo,
but
all the animals in the zoo.
All the animals in the zoo were dead.
Jesus, lions, tigers, bears, elephants.
All of them, not just dead, but strangely mutilated. Really interesting. The caretaker and the employees said that all the animals were still locked and secured in their pens, and exhibits with no sign of force or keyed entry. There was no sign that anybody broke in.
Right.
Or even use their key card or whatever. So,
but somebody obviously cut up animals.
They were cut up. Yeah. So it was not like somebody went in and just broke in. Although they were unable to take pictures of any of the animals, they said that all of them looked as though they had been surgically autopsied or examined. Despite the deaths and apparent relation, little to no blood was present at all, which was really kind of weird, I think. So needless to say, the zoo was closed without explanation.
Right.
They just fucking closed it down.
Well, all their animals are dead.
Well, and no trespassing signs were placed
Come see
near the
dead
entrance.
We've got empty cages.
Right. They put up no trespassing signs and all the way around the whole friggin' zoo. So park personnel and police were summoned. The zoo was closed, and within hours, all of the dead animal carcasses had been removed. The zoo employees that spoke said that the animal deaths and mutilations were eventually explained as a way basically the work of vandals or ritualistic killers in an internal report.
That's right.
They blamed
satanic scare
They
shit.
did. They blamed the satanic panic. The weird thing
It could be weirdos, though. It definitely was most likely people, and it was probably weirdos doing weird things.
Well,
sure.
most likely. I mean, that's really the only explanation that we have. But they do point out that the vandals, in their reports, they pointed out the vandals would have made all kinds of noise trying to kill the animals,
right,
which is kind of weird. They had to break into most of the pens in the exhibits, and there was no signs of break-in. Would have left a significant amount of blood and other evidence behind.
There wasn't blood. That's fucking weird.
Right.
It's like they killed these animals, drained them, and brought them back.
Well, it's not only animal blood, but there's no human blood. When you break into the pen of a tiger in the middle of the night, shit's going to go down.
You would think so.
You would think, unless you dart it first.
I mean...
But then, if you autopsy it or whatever, dissect it, there's going to be blood.
Circus animals and zoo animals go straight to Hot Pockets. So, I mean, that's what happened there. And Hot Pockets asks no questions.
Well, the other weird thing was that none of the alarms. The thing was highly set with alarms. It's an animal park, and for insurance reasons, alarms have to be positioned all throughout the park.
Inside job.
Right. So no alarms went off at the park. So nobody working nearby, no lights, nothing. Nobody heard anything.
That's insane. It's really a big mystery.
Right.
I mean, when we were talking about this before we did the show, I was like, well, who owned the zoo? Maybe somebody that worked for the zoo hated the guy that owned the zoo and was willing to kill all the animals.
Yeah, I don't. That's terrible. Why? For what reason?
Who knows? People are weird.
Because? But how do you... Okay, so let's unpack this for just a minute.
All right.
There is a 11 to 6:30. That's 7.5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
7.5 hours to stealthily and silently enter a zoo, even if it's an inside job. Okay?
Right.
Let's just say, how many people have to be part of this? one.
Right. Who's all being recruited to be part
I
of this?
don't know how big the park is, but let's just, for shits and giggles, say 10 animals.
Okay.
Just 10.
Where
A
were
bear,
where were the PETA people that day?
a
Sorry.
bear, a camel, a lion, a tiger. You know, your standard zoo animals that people are like, ooh, you want those animals. Let's just say 10. That's all.
Okay.
And you've got 7.5 hours to break into a zoo, not be detected, not set off any alarms, murder the animals. Of course, you're going to have to, lay plastic down to catch all of the blood? No blood can be present.
Right, I guess.
They can't hurt you. You got to figure out a way to dart them. And this is just with 10, and you have 7 hours to do it. Then you have to
Right.
dissect them. And then you have to clean up your mess, pose them, I don't know, whatever you're going to do. And then you have to make your way out also without being detected. All the while, security and police are walking around the park.
Here's what they did. Hear me out. Okay. So they dropped...
And all I did was 10 animals. We're not talking hundreds.
I agree.
How many people had to be involved?
Quite a few.
How do you keep that secret?
You kill all the people that were involved.
Where are their bodies?
Illuminati scum. They sent it to space, probably.
All right.
But here's my theory.
No,
Okay, here's my theory. This is a legit theory. I think this is probably what happened.
Okay.
So, it's New York, right?
Yeah.
So they have access to helicopters in New York. That's not a crazy thing to be like, okay, we got a helicopter.
Okay.
I rented this helicopter. I dropped some... They can't have guns in New York, but they can have, like, gas canisters of shit. So they dropped this canister of fucking shit on the zoo that knocked all the animals out.
Okay.
And then they went around and killed them all themselves because they worked at the zoo.
Oh.
They landed the helicopter. And on this helicopter, they have, like a working lab where they can suck blood. Like vacuum tubes and stuff. They spend a lot of money on this. Really don't like the guy that
That's a
owns
lot
the
of
zoo.
weight. Hundreds of animals.
Right. But
That's a lot of weight.
They had 6 hours. 8 hours
So they just
almost.
kept coming and going and no one ever noticed the helicopter?
See, this is the genius part of what I think happened.
No
and why
police
I think it's
or
true.
security
They
noticed the helicopter.
They paused time because it's New York. New York has weird, as you've learned from watching all the sci-fi movies and all the Marvel movies, there's always really crazy scientists in New York. And they knew a crazy scientist. And he also didn't like that fucking guy that owned the zoo.
Right, okay.
And so that's what happened. And
Who
then they
paid
threw up lights in the sky to throw people off.
So
And
who
they
paid
blame
for
it on
this
the
shit?
Probably that rich guy
To-
that also didn't like the zoo guy.
To
It was
what?
basically a conspiracy.
To what end?
Illuminati scum.
What was his point?
So that the people wouldn't go to that zoo anymore. Fuck that zoo. Cheap land. They wanted to buy it. What's there now? What'd they put there now?
The zoo is still there.
Oh, fuck. They didn't win. That guy was resilient and won against Illuminati scum.
As far as I know, that zoo still exists. When I did my research, it was still there.
As far as I know, what I just said is completely accurate.
Unless they tore it down in 2021, then,
Well,
who knows?
For all intents and purposes, if it lasted until 2021, my point's very dumb.
Well,
but I still think it's right.
I think your point's dumb
I think it's pretty good.
I think somebody would notice a helicopter. Those aren't quiet.
Yeah, but they were looking up at the little space things.
Somebody would have said,
blue and green balls.
It doesn't matter. Somebody would have said, I heard a helicopter last night.
You see that helicopter with that fucking zebra? What's he doing with that zebra? Well, I don't know. Just look at the little
even
pretty
if it
light.
was in the middle of the night, 1:00 in the morning, the people around the zoo are going to be like, I hear a helicopter.
It was a stealth helicopter.
Oh.
It was
a
special
triangular
military,
shaped stealth.
It's fucking rad. See, it's all coming together. I get it. So is that
That's the end of that story.
okay? Wasn't that weird, guys? I mean, come on.
It was a weird story.
What makes it weird is that there was no blood when they.
What makes it
cut
weird is the
open
fucking
animals.
helicopter.
Well,
Personally, I think that's what makes it weird. And the vats. And the helicopter that can withstand hundreds of animals'
blood.
Total volume of blood. Where are they putting it?
Strong helicopters.
50-gallon drums. How many can that helicopter
Lots of
handle?
trips.
Is it
In
a
8 hours?
military? Is 7.5? Is it a military helicopter?
I mean, probably.
I mean, maybe they're not quiet.
No, they're not.
Okay, nobody noticed.
There was a concert, maybe that somebody was playing
at 3 in the morning.
Probably a concert at 3
when
in the
they're
morning.
hauling bodies or blood.
It was a conspiracy. It was. That's what happened.
Of course it is.
Makes sense. So we gave this one a 1.4 because it didn't really hold up to much.
Well, as interesting and intriguing as this is, I mentioned in another episode at one point, my mom always told me if it doesn't make sense, it's probably not true.
Yeah.
This is what I'm running into here.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
I want to believe that it was aliens. I really do.
Sure. Dicks. Aliens are dicks, though.
But the thing is, this stuff it doesn't make sense. That's what I don't get. It doesn't make any sense. So either it never happened and they were trying to cover up a massive death inside the zoo due
like
to
they starved them, or there's a gas
something.
leak or some shit.
Right.
They didn't check for shoes. All that shit. That'll do it.
Stop. Okay, so anyways, we ended up with a low score because of that.
Yes.
I want to believe it, but
right, because there was tons of witnesses. There was tons of people that saw those lights.
Yep.
And there was tons of people that obviously saw dead animals.
Obviously, there was people hauling carcasses out of there.
Yeah.
The police were involved.
Right.
So
those are witnesses, but none of them knew what the fuck happened. So the witnesses are kind of low, but we did give it a 3 because there was a lot of people involved in both these things. And the claim is, of course, that the UFOs were involved in the zoo stuff.
Well, it was speculated.
Right. Right.
Just because there was a connection between lights in the sky and weird shit going on. The wolves
like
escaped.
the wolves thing before, yeah.
Right.
All that stuff. So, I mean, I get it. And people want to correlate things and give it causation and all that stuff. But we did give it a 3.0 because there were a lot of people involved in this that were all like, what the fuck?
What the
Where's
fuck is
the
going
blood?
on? Right.
Nobody has a key. And then, they probably interviewed all of their employees immediately.
Right.
And they're like, who did this? And they're like, none of us. So,
Well,
and I don't want to
just
just be like, well, somebody did there.
Well, and the police are like,
Right.
it was Satan.
Right. That's the worst
It was
part.
Satan. There were devil worshippers.
Fucking 80s. Although, you know what? There are weird, sick people that you would just throw in a thing. You just lump them in a category. Like, the devil worshippers. It's
right.
like, what were they into? Well, they were into this one specific snuff film, and they built a cult around it.
Yeah. Well.
It's easier just to be like, devil worshippers. So.
Weird things happen. Weirder things have happened, yeah.
Right. And the credibility of the witnesses was also high. We gave them a 4.0 because they're police and people trained to notice things, etc.
Right.
But
Parks, employees, veterinarians.
Yeah, absolute experts on animals.
Animal coroners.
Exactly. So it's not like they're just a bunch of yahoos.
Right.
But it's a weird situation. But most of the animal coroners were like, this is for sure alien shit. We should look into the alien connection.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But we still give it a 4.0 because fucking it's our show. We can do what we want. But we did, as far as that, we're probably not consistent because physical evidence, there's 0.
Right.
Except for all the dead animals.
There was a lot of, it's hearsay. I mean,
exactly.
This is what they said.
Yep.
I mean, the police were there and they're like devil worshippers. And
which is about the same.
And that is pretty much it. Yeah, it's either devil worshippers, Satan, or aliens. And that's all we got.
But I think my conspiracy that they fucking a bunch of people hated the guy.
That's way more
interesting. It's better. Helicopters, fucking hell yeah.
Way more interesting.
Little science
I
shit.
still have a hard time with the sounds, but whatever.
Fuck the sounds. The concert covered up the sounds.
I got a good plan. The 3 a.m. concert. Awesome.
There was also no video for
Right.
this. There was no photography. I mean, there's probably videos of the dead animals.
There has to be photos, but none for the public. Right.
And there's probably videos or at least photos. Maybe not. This is the 80s. Again, back with the potato on your shoulder of the lights. So maybe nothing. But we found
potato.
0. The salted potato.
Salted potato.
Yeah,
it's a little bit better than 70s.
It's getting better for sure. Not much better. But the video 0. And then we also, how believable is it? 0. That's what we said.
I had a hard time with this story.
Right.
I really did.
I think negligence 100%.
Like serious hard time with this story. I was like, I can't. I can't.
Yeah, there's no... It's a giant leap to do any of the leaps.
I mean, maybe if there were pictures, which I don't want to see pictures of dead animals, but I mean, maybe if there was some type of... There's no proof. It's just a group of people that are like, dude, do you know what happened?
This alien stuff, bro.
Right, so
it gets 1.4 because there were lots of people around it and blah, blah, blah. It's probably too high. 1.4 is probably too high, but it's fucking... It got a lot of zeros in there, too. And that leads us to our final story of the afternoon or evening or morning,
however you're reading it.
Whatever the fuck's going on.
However you're listening to it.
Whatever you're doing. Whatever holes you're absorbing this through. This is called the Sutton Family. This one is fucking crazy, guys.
Okay, yeah, this is really crazy. So on August 21st, 1955, all hell broke loose in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. Hopkinsville is a modest-sized city sitting at just over 30,000 residents. It's a quiet town, just like any others. The thing that I found really interesting is that they were known best for bowling balls.
Okay.
So 60% of all bowling balls made came from Hopkinsville until the factory shut down in 2019.
Oh, damn. Oh,
I know. Right. So that's, the bowling balls are claim to fame.
I don't know. That is a claim to fame, but maybe they had some sort of monopoly thing going on and they were pushing other little bowling ball companies out and stuff.
Maybe.
You guys tell us if you live in that part of the world.
Well, in 1978...
I kid. I don't know. Fuck me.
In 1978, the film Attack of the Killer Tomatoes stated that Hopkinsville was once besieged by millions of irate birds, but that's not true.
Oh.
No, not a true thing.
Oh.
It's just in the movie.
They just made it up. They had to pick some town.
So they picked Hopkinsville.
People were like, did that happen? No.
What actually happened in Hopkinsville was it really interests ufologists and professional debunkers and, of course, us, why we're looking into this. So, August 21st, 1955. I'm just going to tell the story instead of reading it.
Okay.
Billy Ray Taylor and his wife, June, they went to Hopkinsville to go visit family. He wanted to go see his mom. They were rolling through, so they decided to go over and see their friend. They called him Lucky, but his name was Elmer Sutton.
Okay.
So we're going to call him Lucky because that was his nickname. Him and along with 10 of his other family members.
Any one of those names could be a nickname.
Elmer Sutton, Lucky. Elmer Sutton.
That's a guy that did not need a nickname.
So Lucky, along with 10 of his family members, his wife, and there's, the whole family. There were 11 of them total living in this house. And they lived on the outskirts of this town in a kind of a small home. Billy Ray was out. He was visiting them, and he went out to go get water from the well. Mm-hmm. He went to go fetch some water.
Right.
And he...
That's a good boy.
While he was out there, he says he saw a silvery object fly through the sky overhead with multicolored, like rainbow, I don't know, contrails? Chemtrails? I don't know, whatever you want to call it.
Unicorn piss.
Coming off the back.
Yeah.
And he went inside and he told the family, and they made fun of him. They're like, what the fuck? Sit down.
This is in the 50s. This is 55.
1955.
So there is a lot of UFO stuff in the minds of Americans.
So Billy Ray also was kind of known to be a jokester. He is kind of one of those guys.
Fucking Billy Ray.
Right. He was kind of kind of a comedian, kind of prankster. So
douche.
We're going to put a stake in the ground on that story, and we're going to go back about, from the time Billy Ray saw this, we're going to go back about a half an hour prior. So he was probably in the house giving the family shit.
Right.
When elsewhere in the county, a police officer noticed 3 objects flying through the sky. He said there was 3 of them, 2 together, 1 following, and he thought they were meteors. Also letting off like gaseous stuff off the end.
Shit's falling off.
Right.
Whatever.
So he saw that. I think it's really hard to tell because people aren't timing themselves and looking at the clock all the time, but it was around that time. So then Billy sees 1 object, and he says that he flew overhead, and it passed, but it was silent. He heard nothing until it stopped abruptly and then dropped to the ground behind some trees. And he was like, what the fuck? So he went in, and they all laughed him out of the room. They're like, you're insane. He let it go, kind of. Not really. He couldn't get his mind off of what he just saw. But they all kind of settled down, and they continued on with their night. They're playing, like, pinochle and stuff, cards.
50 shit.
Yeah.
You know how that 50 shit goes.
Well, so the dogs had started barking, and eventually the barking got so annoying that they went to check out what was going on.
I can relate to annoying barking.
So Billy Ray and Lucky went to investigate, and they saw this really weird glow coming from the tree line, the forest line, which was kind of extended out from their property. And in the middle of this glow, according to these guys, came this weird creature. It was about 3 feet tall, 3.5 feet tall. Its head was oversized, and it was almost perfectly round. And the arms extended almost to touch the ground, and it had talons and eyes that glowed like yellow.
Mothman. Okay.
Kind of sounds like Mothman, right?
Yeah.
The body gave off an eerie shimmer, kind of like it was made of silver, like metal.
Like Mothman?
So they were really like blown away. So basically they ran back They gathered their 20-gauge shotguns, and, well, Billy had a 20-gauge shotgun. Lucky had a 22 rifle. And basically, they ran back outside and began firing indiscriminately at the creatures. They just opened fire. I don't know how you open fire with a shotgun.
No,
It's a kind of a slow process. But anyways. So later on, they would state that the creature came out, and he had his clawed hands, taloned hands up.
Right.
Kind of like in
Mothman.
No, it was up in the air, kind of like he was surrendering, is what it looked like.
Oh, they shot at him?
They kept firing.
Dicks.
But
50s.
then the thing was, it didn't stop them from firing. But every time they shot at it, they thought they hit it, but it would do this weird flip, like it would do a backflip.
What?
I know, weird. And this is just one creature at this point.
Okay.
So far.
So it's just Mothman 1.
Just Mothman 1, shiny silver Mothman, little 3 foot tall.
Right.
Anyways, he'd flip and then he'd rush back into the darkness, and they wouldn't see him. So he'd go back into the tree line. So panic beyond belief. These two guys are shitting themselves. They return to the house, and they're like, women and children in the back room, hide under the bed.
50 shit.
Everyone take care, cover yourselves. We're going to cover you with fire. So there we go.
Right.
Once inside, another one of the creatures showed up. So he was caught, the thing was caught peering through a window.
Oh, God.
Right. So not only is there one out front, all of a sudden it's like, Lucky, look in the window. And there's this thing looking in the window.
Elmer is not happy about this.
Once again, they opened fire. The creature once again did this weird flip, like a backflip, and then scurried away. And
acrobatic motherfuckers, and they sure can't take a bullet.
Right. So at this point, the Suttons and the Taylors really felt as if they're fighting for their lives, because these things are relentless. They're not going away.
It's escalating high because they've already shot a lot of bullets into some stuff.
Well, so the window screens were shredded by shot shells, 22 rounds, but no one was any closer to figuring out what the fuck was going on, even though they just keep firing. So Billy Ray decided to step outside just to kind of size up the situation and find out, because it had kind of quieted down a little bit. So Billy Ray,
being reasonable,
stepped outside.
Kind of made a mess up, yeah.
Both guys really went and to check it out on the porch. Once there, the family actually reported seeing a hand come down.
Creepy.
From the overhang above the porch.
Ooh.
And try and grab his hair.
Ooh, shit.
And they saw it, and then he felt it. He screamed. He turned. He started shooting at the overhang. And then Lucky's shooting at the overhang, and they're firing at the roof now.
Of course.
So the door's gone. The window screens are shot out. Now there's holes in the roof and the porch, right?
Must have hit a few aliens in the process, I'm sure.
So there was, in the distance, another one was spotted up in the trees. And they started firing on that one as well. This went on. Okay, so I can go on.
To bleed.
This went on for 3 hours. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So after about the 3-hour mark, it's around 11 o'clock. It started getting quiet. They didn't see anything. They didn't really hear much except for occasional skittering and scratching sounds on the roof.
Little alien. Ouch.
I know.
Ow, my balls.
So they just heard the roof sound. So finally, they decided, it was at 11 o'clock, they decided it's a war they're not going to win. So they, Sutton...
So they called the milk.
They all went, they ran for the vehicles, and they left. They tore off into the night. There was no phone.
All 11 of them?
Yeah, they all loaded up in their vehicles.
Okay.
So they took off in the night. There's no phone in the farmhouse.
Okay.
They went to go get help. They walked into the police station down in Hopkinsville, panicked. And the police, obviously, they knew something was going on with this family. This is not... Okay, so this is, from what I understand, your standard small-town, church-going, hard-working family.
Right.
No nonsense.
They're asking for help.
Right.
Something to do then to help them.
They tried to shoot the damn thing themselves, right, like they would coyote on their property, and this was not working.
Right.
And so now they're panicked. All the kids, everyone is in the police station, and they're like, "We saw aliens." Yeah. So.
And it looked just like Mothman.
Because of what they had reported, the police officers, they sent a whole group out there to investigate. Luckily, one of the police officers is one of the policeman that I spoke to about earlier.
Right.
Earlier, who
Yeah.
saw that weird shit in the sky.
Uh-huh.
His story and the family story kind of correlated as far as timelines go. So
They're
that's
like, you had a weird day. Me too. Let's hang out.
That's why some
Work on this together.
he gave some credit to this. So they went out. They found shell casings along with all of the damage to the farmhouse. I mean, the windows were shot out. The front door was shot out.
ruined
The
their
porch.
house.
Yeah. There's holes in everything. And a family of 11 living in a house together in rural Kentucky.
They fucked that
They
house.
don't
fucked
want
it
to destroy their house.
there had to
They
be
don't even
something.
have indoor plumbing. They had to go out to the well to get water. There is no phone. They don't want to do that. It's not like they did it out of free, we're
Right.
just going to fuck it all up. No.
Right. But you know what I
So-
would... Go ahead.
So they found the bullets. There were no evidence. There was no evidence of drinking at all. And the matriarch, Mama, didn't allow liquor in the house anyways.
In the
it was
house.
it was a common thing.
But in the barn.
But the children,
Shit-faced.
even the children, were fucking destroyed over this. They were so afraid.
Well,
So
their family members
basically-
are shooting a bunch of guns off around the house.
So after all was clear, the family, basically the police went home, and the family tried to settle in for the night.
After all that shit?
Right. They're trying to go back to sleep.
Well, we got a
right?
lot more skylight.
Well, they don't have anywhere else to
space.
go at this point. So
Got a couple new windows and doors to work on.
Mama claimed at 3 a.m. or 3:30, between 3 and 3:30 in the morning that night, after they tried to settle in, she was laying there, and all of a sudden she saw some movement. She couldn't sleep. She saw some movement in the window, and she glanced over, and she saw one of the creatures silently glowing at the bedroom window with its hand on the screen. And she's like, "Cletus, get your gun!" But she yelled for the family.
And a clean pair of shorts for me.
Once again, they opened fire, and they
Goddamn.
fought all night long. So basically, the news spread so fast it was reported by the New York Times
Nice.
and other local and national news wires. At that point,
Did everybody mock him?
people descended in droves to see what had happened to this family.
Mm.
But the family was so sick of attention that they, of course, wanted to start shooting trespassers on their property, but they couldn't. So they put up signs.
I got Mothman and media. Fuck them all.
Well, they put up signs. They're not. I really don't think this family wanted attention.
Right.
I just don't. Most people. My good family friend lives in rural Kentucky.
Yeah.
Ron.
Yeah.
Ronnie. And he doesn't want company.
Right.
Anybody who steps foot on private property is a trespasser.
It's forfeited a bunch of rights.
And if you're
Yeah.
going to keep walking, you're either in for it because you're going to steal something, or you're a quote-unquote revenuer.
That's old school.
Revenuer.
We shoot tax man when the
Yep,
check man
exactly.
come around.
So
Yeah.
basically, they put up no trespassing signs all over the property, but the people ignored them. So then, not wanting to get in trouble for killing, they started charging admission. 50 cents for entering the property, $1 for information, and $10 to take a picture.
And then they retired off the money for the pictures. 'Cause why not?
50 cents at a time.
Fuck man.
Yep.
So yeah, they made it up so they can make money off the media.
Yeah, well, they didn't.
It doesn't sound like it. Sounds like they wanted to keep.
They
people
wanted
away.
people to go away, right? So in 1956, ufologist Isabel Davis compiled a 200-page report on this encounter. Through her investigation, she ruled out everything, which I kind of want to read the report, but she ruled out everything aside from a genuine alien contact, is what she called it.
Wow.
So 200-page report. She really dug. She stated she believed the family members she spoke to were honest, sober folks. And her report to this day remains the most comprehensive breakdown of the events of that night.
Of course.
So,
Yeah.
but
It's nice and fresh.
there's a couple little things here. So writer and skeptic Jake Slocum stated in 2008, he said to take a look at the head of the creature and then look at the head of an owl.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. And then he said, now get really, really drunk. This is a quote.
Exactly.
We're talking mid-50s rural Kentucky drunk. End quote.
It is hard not to think of life without
Right.
alcohol in the 50s in Kentucky. I'm sorry.
The owl theory is one of interest to a few different researchers. So there's that one.
I just want to take people at their word. It sucks if they're lying.
I do too.
It's like we weren't drunk that night. Okay.
I don't want to.
Oh, I guess we were. You fucking piece of shit.
Oh, lying about being drunk.
Yeah.
Okay. I was
what I'm
going to
saying.
say their experience. I don't think they're lying.
They were
think
shooting at something for
they
sure.
truly. Yeah, they're not going to destroy their house over nothing.
And we were talking about this again before the show. You don't have to be drunk to have a group delusion, a group, hallucination. Those things can happen. They happen in weird things, but they're usually group fear. Fear happens there.
Right.
And so people that have watched Is We Dumb, if you guys have seen the owl, the different weird birds that Joe has found on that show, there's one that's just in the early episodes where if they saw anything close to that, it would freak them out if they had any sip, even if they were sober and they were just afraid. And comparing, say they saw a meteor and they thought it was a UFO, or they say they saw UFOs and they correlated the two. Who knows what they were reading or listening to in the 50s when it came to comic books and
you
movies
can't
and
know
shit.
the inner workings of what's going on.
So they might have been scared shitless of UFOs in the first place. Yeah, that's where their heads were.
Right. So, well, it has also been stated that there was a misidentification of a great pair of great horned owls.
Right.
So that was the other thing.
That's why I went off on that. Owls.
Right. But they're nocturnal. They fly silently. They have yellow eyes. But the thing is, they aggressively defend their nests. Maybe he went out when he went to go get, water. Maybe he disturbed a nest.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure. And they just correlated the weird stuff with the stuff in the sky with an angry owl. The thing
You've been buzzed by a wild bird, right?
Oh,
that
yeah.
gets everything. That'll get your fight or flight going real quick, even if it's a little bird.
Yeah. Well, I just think these people have lived there. They live in Kentucky. They live in this house. They live in a rural atmosphere. Seems to me they would have seen an owl at one point.
Right.
And they probably know what a great horned owl looks like.
I would imagine so too, yeah.
And if there's a nest there and it's defending its nest, don't you think it would have defended its nest prior to that? Just earlier in the afternoon, maybe.
Sure.
So, I don't know. I have a
Could
hard
have been
time with
weird
that.
circumstances that just led to it all. Yeah.
Plus, they said they had, so it said it had clawed hands.
Right.
It had talons on its hands. Yeah. Owls have talons on their feet.
They sure do.
But they also said that its clawed, taloned hands were raised up on either side of his head in kind of like a surrender.
Right.
Like he's surrendering.
Yeah.
That's not an owl. Owl's not going to do that.
Right.
He can't put his feet over his head while he's looking at somebody.
Maybe his wings look like talons, and I don't know. Who knows?
I don't know. Anyways.
It was probably Mothman is what I've determined. It's likely Mothman, probably from Mars.
Yeah. Well, that's all I've got. That's the end of that story. Now, there's a lot more to this story, and it continues on to this day.
Sure.
Of weird shit, weird sightings.
In this area, huh?
In this area, yeah. It's basically like a 4-state span with a bunch of like tunnels and stuff. For our listeners who are interested in this specific story, go on Amazon and look up Hellier. Okay. It's basically it's produced and filmed by a husband and wife and like 2-3 other guys. They're investigators. It's really interesting. The first, I think there's 2 seasons. They had to fit all the information. They had to do 2 seasons.
I remember you talking about that.
Yeah.
It was pretty fascinating, right?
The first episode, season 1, blew my mind because they talked about this in there. And as it went on, it held my attention. It was fascinating. I loved it. But as time went on, I was having a more and more difficult time sticking with it.
Right.
Because it seemed more and more out there.
Right.
But it was still
You're willing to go out there, but not super out there.
Well,
I want to see the shore.
It has to make sense.
Right. Yeah.
If it doesn't make sense,
Absolutely.
I can't. I just can't.
Right.
But anyways, it's not that show didn't make sense. It did. But there was a lot of reaching going on towards the end of it. But in the beginning, they covered this case and how it plays into the rest of Hellier and the story that they're doing is fascinating. First season, really good. Second season kind of lost me a little bit. But it's a documentary.
Okay.
broken up into seasons. And I think it's like 17 hours.
Jesus.
It's long.
Well, if you guys need 17 hours worth of material,
Yeah.
if there's not enough content in the world for you,
I think it's
17 more hours of
17 hours with both season 1 and season 2 all combined. Yeah.
Nice.
It's a lot of
That's not bad.
lot of video, it's interesting.
That's
Anyways.
that's like a Harry Potter marathon.
Yeah. Is
Something
it?
like that. I don't
Yeah,
know.
maybe.
I'm guessing. Well, all right. Let's look at our little meter for that. The Sutton Family total it gets 1.65.
Yeah.
Which is not very high.
Right.
We're not gonna look into it too hard as far as the
Right.
serious world and stuff, but it's fucking interesting.
It
to
is.
see. Was that a case of mass delusion or family delusion?
Right.
Was it misidentification of something? Was it drinking? Was it fucking aliens? Was it Mothman? Of course.
I think it's Mothman.
Indeed. Well, the witness quantity, there were
11 in the house, actually 13 total, because there were 11 plus 2 visitors.
Mm-hmm.
Then the police were involved.
right.
There was a policeman in the beginning that saw something strange in the sky that also made the connection. So that's 13, 14. I think without the policeman, just the people involved in the siege itself, there were 13 of them.
In the fucking weird ass shooting, the poor kids are like, "What in the fuck's going on,
Yeah.
bro?"
Yeah.
Well, we gave it a 4.25
Yeah.
because out of 5 because it is we have an actual technical scale. One person is a 0.5 and it moves from there. So there
Right.
were plenty of people that saw this.
They
go
were
down.
all involved. Yep.
And then our credibility, they're just normal folk.
Mm-hmm.
We gave them a 3, even though there was a police officer involved. But it was kind of weird, so we just left it at a 3.
Right.
Because it was like, it's credible for sure. They seem like nice folk.
Yeah.
But when it gets to the point of everybody shooting up the house and it can either be, yes, it was an aliens, or fucking they all got spooked hard.
Don't put LSD in the punch,
Right.
bro.
No, it was before that shit was illegal, they were just having a fun time. But we did give it a 3.0. So those
There's
two are-
mushrooms floating in the punch bowl.
Indeed. Whoops. That sounds like a good time. Sounds like college.
I blame Billy Ray.
With
Yeah.
the name like that.
Yeah.
But the physical evidence we gave a 0.
Right, there was
Because,
none.
yeah,
Except
they
for
didn't get a body.
shot up house and a bunch of shotgun shells. There's no blood, there's no body, there's no pictures, there's no scratch marks, nothing.
Didn't they find they found some blood, didn't they?
Well, there was
a weird substance.
There was a couple of different stories that I read where it stated that the police found the words they used was they found body fluid in the lawn, but they didn't take a sample.
Right. So we have no idea.
Right.
So we have to call that a 0.
1955, I don't think they were sampling that stuff.
No.
Maybe they were. Maybe they were testing for blood type.
Illuminati were,
May-
but nobody else. They didn't. Nobody else even knew. Illuminati
Maybe.
kept us in the dark for a long time.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's right.
Anyways.
So then the videos and photos, obviously 0.
Yep.
So all 4 of those 2 were both 0s. And then the believability, I want to give it just a 1. Just because
Yeah,
that's fun.
I know, I know.
I believe that they believe some shit was going down.
Exactly. I
100%
don't think they
believe
would
it.
have destroyed their
No.
house without the LSD.
No, but this does kind of hide like a worse story. That's what I think in some cases this is.
A worse story? What do you mean?
They were shooting at each other because they hate each other. Maybe they had a fight. Maybe it was some
Oh.
weird ass shit like that or something. Maybe it was something just pedestrian but ridiculous, and they're like, no, let's just blame it on aliens. Remember we saw the thing.
Yeah, but
I don't know.
this was private property, and they can shoot up their own house if they want to.
I know, but just
So-
to save face, they're like, why'd you shoot up your house, Olaf, or whatever your fucking name is?
Billy Ray and
Lucky, yeah,
Elmer.
Elmer.
is
That's
his
what I was
name.
going
Yeah.
for. Why'd you shoot up your house, Elmer? Well, aliens. It's not because you hate your brother and you think.
So you
he's a
think
cunt.
these Kentucky folk, these backwoods Kentucky folk, would much rather be known as the alien guy that brought all that media onto his property for months
He's thinking about the
instead
money.
of just admitting that, he tried to shoot his son-in-law?
Yeah, I think he wanted a book deal and it didn't go through. And it just the whole plan was, let's make this story. We're going to shoot some holes in the house, but we're going to get a new house from the book deal.
Oh.
And it didn't work out right.
All
They didn't
right.
play that. They didn't play all of the things that they had coming to them well. They did charge admission to their house, which I think is wise. But the book deal,
Right.
it fell through, obviously. So
Well, we're still talking about it, so that's kind of cool.
yeah, no, I
70
I,
years later.
I definitely believe that they believe some shit happened.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I don't
definitely.
and I don't think they were probably off their rocker. I'm sure it was something. And,
Yeah.
and I've been afraid to the point of, where you're almost like, and I've been around other people that are afraid at that level, not that level,
Right.
but where they're all kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
and you can go pretty far, and you can see things in that scenario. I mean, I had a car accident a long time ago with a few of my friends, and we had been drinking, but I don't know about you guys, but I don't see things on alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
I don't hallucinate on alcohol, but we were scared. We were wandering in the woods. We didn't want to get arrested. We were like 19,
Yeah.
drinking out in the woods, and I rolled my car, and we got out.
Because you were drinking and driving, dipshit.
Right. Yeah, I was totally stupid. Never do that. I learned how to not drink and drive by doing the dumb shit.
Yeah.
And I never did again. But anywho, it was a shared experience between four of us where we were scared and we saw shit and we experienced shit that we all four thought for sure we saw because one of us said they did. And
really?
Yeah, it was. I read about some of the things. I mean, the madness of crowds and those kind of things are a real deal. I mean, you can really create a weird thing with peer pressure and just what's expected and a big loud PA system, etc. I'm thinking of like Nazis and shit too.
Oh.
Like, it's amazing what people can do in those
Right.
kind of circumstances. But anyway, in those little circumstances, you can hallucinate and you can see weird shit and believe it to your dying day.
Well, I want to hear from the listeners. I mean, what did you guys think of these stories? What are your theories?
Yeah, what would you have done?
Right.
If you were fucking seeing a weird ass owl Mothman motherfucker.
Well, I want to know your theories. And if you've had any weird experiences like this, and also, if you have any cool stories you want to share, send those in to info@SkatCast.com.
Yeah, we'll share them next week. If you send them in.
Exactly. Or on the next, even
or the next
on another.
Yeah, we're doing.
We have a plan.
Yeah, we do.
Cannibals.
Yes. Oh, yeah. We got a fun month coming. But next time we do UFOs, we'll read all your stories. And I got a couple too that I'll tell, and you've got a couple. We'll tell stories.
Cool.
Yeah. So this has been the Dipshit Files number 9.
Yes, it has.
I hope you enjoyed it. We had fun. It was a hell of a process to get through here.
I know.
Today's been a hell of a day.
It's been a great day.
It has been a great day, and I hope you guys have a great day as well. And keep your eyes to the skies.
Yeah.
That you never know what you're going to see.
Who knows?
And watch out for Mothman.
Oh, and keep the cell phone to the ready.
Yeah.
Because I want to see some footage.
Yeah, let's get some good footage.
Yeah.
Let's see good footage.
Not on a potato.
No. You don't have a potato in your pocket. You might. Maybe. For whatever reason, they're just neat.
I don't want to know.
Cover up the front.
I don't want to know.
Scare people in the back. I don't know.
There's a potato in your pocket.
It's good stuff.
All right.
All right. We'll talk at you in the future. It'll seem like the present.
It's the Dipshit Files.
Bing,
bong.
blah, blah, blah.